Today, we dive into the fascinating world of historical imposters. From con artists to cunning pretenders, the pages of history are filled with people who donned false identities and used their wits, charm, and outright audacity to deceive communities, governments, and the world. They played an interesting role in shaping history and continue to captivate our imaginations to this day. Prepare to be amazed as we reveal the elaborate schemes of imposters throughout history. Mary Wilcox. Mary Wilcox, the woman who'd one day be known as Princess Caraboo, led a life that captivated 19th century England. Born somewhere around November 1792 in Withridge, Devonshire, England, she was the daughter of a humble cobbler. Her remarkable tale starts on April 3, 1817, when a cobbler in Almondsbury, Gloucestershire, met a strange sight. A young woman dressed in exotic clothing, speaking an unknown language. Baffled by her mere presence, the cobbler's wife took her to see the overseer of the poor, setting off a chain of events that'd eventually shock the nation. This stranger identified herself as Princess Caraboo. She claimed to come from a distant island called Javasu, located in the Indian Ocean. With an air of mystery, she captured the imaginations of locals, including Samuel Worrell, the country magistrate, and his wife Elizabeth. Princess Caraboo's journey took her from a modest local inn to the lavish Worrell home, where she demonstrated several skills like archery, fencing, and swimming, as well as practicing her faith in a god she referred to as Allah Ta'ala. For 10 long weeks, she was a fascination, and her story quickly spread across newspapers, earning her nationwide fame. An attempt to decipher her language was made through Dr. Wilkinson's expertise and Edmund Fry's Pantographia, which contained the alphabet for all the known languages in the world. Local newspapers even published stories about her remarkable adventures. But the elaborate hoax eventually unraveled when a boarding housekeeper named Mrs. Neal recognized her from a newspaper photograph. Princess Caraboo was, in actuality, Mary Wilcox, the daughter of a cobbler from Withridge, Devon. Her strange language was a concoction of imaginary and Romany words combined on the spot. In the aftermath of the shocking revelation, Mary Wilcox continued about her life with an element of notoriety, which eventually took her overseas to the United States, where she briefly continued her role as Princess Caraboo. Her journey later brought her back to England, where she married Richard Baker, took the name Mary Burgess, and lived quietly until her death in December 1864. Before we continue, if you're joining us for the first time today, make sure you hit that subscribe button to see more incredible videos. And don't keep your thoughts to yourself. Drop a comment below and tell us what content you want to see next. Ferdinand Demara. Ferdinand Waldo Demara Jr. was born in 1921. He was an extraordinary American impostor whose life was nothing short of incredible. The man was the subject of both a book and a movie, The Great Impostor, where he was portrayed by the great Tony Curtis. Demara's impersonations were as diverse as they were bold, ranging from a civil engineer to a Benedictine monk, a naval surgeon, a teacher, and many more. He had a unique ability to take on different identities, often borrowing names or assuming false credentials, and seamlessly integrating into various professions and organizations. His talents weren't narrowed down to a single field. He jumped into a multitude of roles, embracing the challenges involved with each. Born in Lawrence, Massachusetts during 1921, Demara had a troubled childhood. After running away from home at the age of 16, he started on a journey that would take him from the Trappist monks to multiple religious institutions and military services. He used his aliases to navigate this path, continuously seeking out new opportunities and positions that he could jump into. One of his most infamous accomplishments was masquerading as a Canadian surgeon, Joseph C. Sear, during the Korean War. He worked as a ship's doctor on the HMCS Cayuga. Demara's quick thinking and ability to improvise life-saving techniques in surgeries earned him both recognition and praise. But when his true identity was finally revealed, he faced a court-martial and was discreetly dismissed. Demara's life philosophy focused on expanding into the power vacuum. He believed in finding his own opportunities and creating his own set of rules instead of competing with already established norms. His unique approach to life let him carve a new path forward. In his later years, Demara founded a college in Alfred, Maine, with the Christian Brothers of Instruction, but left when he didn't agree with their choices. He made some appearances on television shows and lived in Orange County, California, serving as a chaplain to the Good Samaritan Hospital. Even when his past was entirely exposed, he managed to hold a role as a chaplain thanks to the close friendships he built. Ferdinand Demara's life was an intricate web of impersonations and reinventions. He left a mark on the world, not just through his many identities, but also through the mysteries and questions surrounding his motivations and character. His death in 1982 marked the end of a truly mysterious figure whose legacy remains the subject of fascination. Cassie Chadwick. Cassie L. Chadwick, born Elizabeth Bigley in Appin, Canada West on March 28, 1857, was a notorious Canadian con artist who had a colorful life in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. She had several pseudonyms and engaged in a series of elaborate deceptions, but it was her bold claim to be the illegitimate daughter and heiress of the Scottish-American industrialist Andrew Carnegie that catapulted her into the pages of criminal history. From an early age, Cassie displayed a knack for lying and financial schemes. Her early brushes with the law for forgery and trying to borrow money on stolen items marked the beginnings of her criminal days. After multiple encounters with the law in Canada, she eventually migrated to the United States, where she continued her wayward ways. In the United States, Cassie took on a few aliases, including Madame Lydia DeVere and Madame Marie LaRose, masquerading as a trained clairvoyant. It was during this period that she married twice, first to Dr. Wallace S. Springsteen and then to John R. Scott. Her ability to manipulate people and take on false identities allowed her to avoid detection for a short time, even when convicted of forgery and sent to prison. Her most famous con started in 1897, when she claimed to be the daughter of Andrew Carnegie. She convinced several bankers to lend her substantial amounts of money, backed by the belief that Carnegie, a prominent industrialist, would later vouch for her debts and that she would inherit a fortune upon his death. Her lavish spending on jewelry, clothes, and opulent possessions earned her a nickname, the Queen of Ohio. The House of Cards eventually collapsed in on itself in 1904 when one of her creditors, Herbert B. Newton, finally exposed her fraudulent activities. Andrew Carnegie himself denied knowing who she was or anything about the debts she had accrued. This led to her arrest and trial in a media circus. Cassie Chadwick's trial captured the nation's attention, and her sentencing to 14 years in prison and a substantial fine marked the end of her criminal career. She was imprisoned at the Ohio State Penitentiary, where her health slowly deteriorated, leading to blindness and a nervous collapse. On her 50th birthday, October 10, 1907, Cassie Chadwick died in her cell. George Psalmanazar. George Psalmanazar was a Frenchman of mysterious origins who carried out one of the most elaborate hoaxes in the history of imposters. Born around 1679 in southern France, Psalmanazar was taught in Franciscan and Jesuit schools, where he showcased a talent for learning languages. This early aptitude for linguistics paved the way for his later deceit. Psalmanazar's journey as an impostor began when he pretended to be an Irish pilgrim heading to Rome, a disguise that didn't withstand scrutiny for very long. Determined to take on a more exotic identity, he then adopted the persona of a Japanese convert, and later a Japanese heathen with an array of strange customs. The narrative shifted when he started saying he was a native of Formosa, now Taiwan. He had a foreign calendar, sun and moon worship, and even a self-invented language. In 1703, he met up with the Scottish priest Alexander Innes, who converted him to Christianity and gave him the name George Psalmanazar. This identity, combined with his invented Formosan background, became the crux of his infamous impersonations. After reaching London, Psalmanazar's story and outlandish habits made him a sensation, captivating the public. His appeal also stemmed from the prevailing anti-Catholic and anti-Jesuit sentiment in Britain during the time, since he portrayed himself as a reformed heathen who embraced Anglicanism. In 1704, he published An Historical and Geographical Description of Formosa, a book that claimed to offer an account of Formosa's customs, geography, and political economy. But it was a work of complete fiction, blending elements of other travel stories, including descriptions of the Aztec and Inca civilizations and embellished portrayals of feudal Japan. George Psalmanazar's fantastical account of Formosa painted an entirely fake picture of a prosperous land. According to his narrative, Formosans lived in a world where men wore only a gold or silver plate to hide their modesty, surviving on snakes that they hunted with branches. In this alternate reality, husbands were granted a bizarre right to consume their unfaithful wives. Justice was brutal, with murderers hung upside down, riddled with arrows. Rituals were horrifying, with an annual sacrifice of 18,000 young boys, their hearts offered up to the gods, and their flesh devoured by priests. Psalmanazar's Formosa was a place of dark customs and macabre traditions, far removed from his reality. An historical and geographical description of Formosa became a resounding success, and he was invited to lecture on the native Formosan culture and language before societies, including the Royal Society, where he faced challenges from skeptics. While many doubted his claims, his charisma and storytelling ability allowed him to deflect the harshest critics. As his career as an impostor dwindled down, Psalmanazar transitioned into a more modest life. He immersed himself in theological studies and contributed to literary endeavors, including editing books and writing pamphlets. His newfound religiosity led to the publication of theological essays in 1753, distancing himself from the impostors that once defined his identity. Remarkably, George Psalmanazar formed an unlikely friendship with Samuel Johnson, and he interacted with other prominent literary figures of his time. His life, from the heights of imposture to the depths of theological introspection, offers an interesting window into the cultural and intellectual environment of 18th century London. Upon his death in 1763, Psalmanazar's memoirs revealed the truth behind his life, including the admission that his entire Formosan persona had been fake, bringing an end to one of history's most remarkable lies. James Barrie. James Barrie, born in 1789, was a remarkable individual who defied society's norms and achieved significant accomplishments during his time in the British Army. Born as Margaret Ann Bulkley, Barrie's life was marked by financial struggles and challenges. Despite the many obstacles, Barrie pursued a career in medicine and later enrolled as a student at the University of Edinburgh, living as a man. Graduating as Dr. James Barrie in 1812, he embarked on a distinguished military medical career. Barrie pushed for improvements in sanitation, healthcare, and the well-being of soldiers and marginalized groups in Great Britain. Notably, he performed one of the first successful C-sections in Africa, saving both the mother and baby's lives. Barrie's career took him to many different locations, from South Africa to the West Indies, and even Canada. His unyielding dedication to improving living conditions earned him admirers and detractors. He was not afraid to challenge local officials, often at great personal risk, to offer better treatment for those in his care. Despite the speculation that surrounded Barrie's life and gender, he maintained the facade of being a man. He interacted with influential figures, and his commitment to serving the underprivileged stayed unwavering. Barrie's career culminated with his appointment as Inspector General of Hospitals, the second highest medical position in the entire British Army, overseeing medical facilities and care for soldiers. But poor health and old age forced him into an early retirement in 1859. After living in London, he succumbed to dysentery in 1865. The truth of Barry's biological sex was only fully revealed after death. A chairwoman who prepared Barry's body for burial claimed that Barry was biologically female and had actually given birth at one point. While the exact nature of this revelation is disputed, it caused a massive public scandal. James Barry's life is a testament to his commitment to improving lives, transcending societal expectations, and achieving success in a time when opportunities were often denied to women. Arthur Orton. Arthur Orton, or Tichborne claimant, was a central figure in one of the most contentious legal dramas of the Victorian era. Born on March 20th, 1834, in Wapping, London, Orton's early life was marked by humble beginnings. He was the son of a modest London butcher. His childhood was unremarkable, and he initially tried to follow in his father's footsteps, working at the butcher shop. But he had grander goals and left school at a young age. In 1849, Orton's life took a dramatic turn when he was apprenticed to Captain Brooks on the ship Ocean. The ship's voyage took him across the world to South America, where Orton deserted the ship and spent over a year living in Chile. After going back to London as an ordinary seaman, Orton's life continued to be marked by adventure. In 1852, he sailed for Tasmania and eventually went to Gippsland, Victoria, Australia in 1855. His life down under included stints as a butcher, gold prospector, and station hand, with a sprinkling of minor run-ins with law enforcement. He appeared in court on charges ranging from offering unwholesome meat to obtaining money under false pretenses. The heart of Orton's fame lies in his role as the Tichborne claimant. In 1866, Thomas Castro, a butcher from Wagga Wagga, Australia, claimed to be the missing Sir Roger Tichborne, who vanished at sea in 1854. But evidence quickly started to suggest that Castro might be Arthur Orton just trying to secure the Tichborne estates and baronetcy through lies. The court proceedings surrounding the case were sensational, and ultimately, the verdict was that Castro was not Roger Tichborne, but Arthur Orton. He was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Even after his release, Orton continued to claim his identity as Tichborne, but struggled in poverty. In 1895, he published a confession in which he declared he was Orton, but he retracted this confession not long after. Orton passed away in 1898 in impoverished circumstances and was given a pauper's burial. In an act of extraordinary generosity, the Tichborne family let a card bearing the name Sir Roger Charles Doughty Tichborne to be placed on his coffin before he was lowered into the ground. Throughout history, imposters from Princess Caraboo to Ferdinand Demara have fascinated, perplexed, and entertained us. Whether driven by ambition, desperation, or audacity, their stories serve as a testament to the boundless human capacity for reinvention and deception. Thanks for watching today's video. Share your thoughts with us below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.